Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on the 6-minute CBS preview for its brand new Supergirl series, which just went up online in the last couple of days. And I caught this sucker, and I gotta say, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I think right out of the gate, the thing that sold me the most on it was the tone and the vibe, the sort of lightheartedness that, was surrounding it, the action, adventure, the awe and wonder, if you will, that really kind of harkened back to me the, first look we got just previous to the first airing of the modern Flash series. That whole thing was really adventurous and inspired awe and everything like that. And that's kind of what we're getting with this Supergirl teaser. The biggest selling point beyond that being Melissa Benoist, or Benoist, I'm not exactly sure how her name is pronounced, playing the titular Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, coming to Earth from Krypton, following in the footsteps of her cousin Kal-El, Superman, Clark Kent. Though not necessarily, I like that we're getting the vibe that it's not necessarily going to be handheld, walking the same exact path. There is that level of finding her superpowers and learning to fly and everything like that. But we can already see, and it's arguable whether this is just strictly containing footage from the pilot or maybe the first few episodes into the first season of this Supergirl series. But we're seeing that it's not going to necessarily conform to the same path as Superman's story, whatever that story is. It is arguable whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, having Superman acknowledged, yet not really dealing with him in this particular, situation, because you want Supergirl to stand on her own legs, have her own footing, and find her place in the world, which is kind of the journey she's on. But you also want to be able to acknowledge Superman is there if he is in fact there, and we know him to exist based on this first look of this series. So my question is, are we going to see Superman at some point in the future sort of acknowledging his cousin and being sort of a mentor, or is it strictly going to be Kara and her friends and sister as she meets and is, dealing with, as we see in this particular first look? But as I say, Melissa Benoist, she is definitely awesome in that she's got the whole bumbling sort of office worker thing down that harkens back to Christopher Reeve in his portrayal of Clark Kent, and it's very different from the sort of awe and wonder and majesty of the Supergirl aesthetic, that side of that particular character. I like that we're seeing stark, different, sides to that particular character in this first look. Some things about it, did not necessarily rub me the right way. I mean, I kind of got a kick out of the whole finding, a costume and everything, and there's some throwaway lines, and, we have the one with the bare belly midriff and everything. She doesn't want to wear that and stuff. That is funny to a point, but I think it really closely acknowledges and harkens back to the Lois and Clark series, where Dean Cain's Clark Kent was really trying to find a sort of suit that he could wear, and I don't want it to too closely relate to that series, because while I did like it for its charms, I'm not sure following along with that sort of, inter-office romancy kind of storytelling is necessarily going to work in this particular format in this modern television era, that kind of thing. Also, the idea that we have Callista Flockhart playing Cat Grant, and she's kind of, at least to me in this particular first look, she's very self-aware of just all those annoying traits. Oh, I'm rich, I'm popular, I'm hot, I got money, blah, 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 blah. Like, I didn't really like how self-aware that character was of her own sort of chip on her shoulder. I do understand that there are certain elements that the Cat Grant character, representative of that character in the comics, that's kind of where they're bringing that across. But does that, beg the question, is she going to be sort of an adversary to Kara in this series? Remains to be seen. We don't really see much of a sort of villain. It's mostly setting up the idea of Kara herself, and I love that whole sequence where she realizes her sort of adopted sister is on a plane and she's learning to fly. She gets up, saves the plane. There's that point where she's got to careen it through a bridge, and she's like, oh, come on. I laughed out loud at that. I thought that was awesome. And seeing her get the recognition and wanting the recognition, it's kind of like, a learning curve she's going to have to be on that Clark basically would have to go through himself, being through that ringer. Like, how do I have this life of being a superhero, but how can I also have anonymity when, like, turn that side off when I want to escape it every once in a while, because the world is going to be fawning over these heroes and this heroine and everything like that. I did think it was interesting that, Jimmy Olsen is very representative as the through line between Kara and her cousin. And I like the vibe the actor's given me. I like the fact that he, got Superman to pose for this Pulitzer Prize winning, photograph and everything like that. I like that. Kara's going to have friends in arms, so to speak. I mean, she's already got her sister. She's got Jimmy Olsen, who's aware of her situation. And I was a little bit apprehensive about one of her coworkers, who she lets in on the whole scheme. It's kind of like her Chloe, calling back to Smallville. He's the one coming up with like the costume and the fabrics and the Kevlar and all that kind of stuff. I don't want too many people to be aware of who she is and this alternate side. And it does beg the question: will there be story aesthetics where those people come into danger because they are that aware of who she is and everything, both sides of the coin, of the Supergirl coin, so to speak. I love that they have cast David Harewood as this guy. He's kind of leading, I think they call it Department of Extra Normal Operations, or DEO, something along those lines. And the idea that we're kind of setting up with Kara might be fending off attacks from, extraterrestrials, that kind of situation. And there's the one point in this first look where he's like, he very much doesn't want to even deal with her. He doesn't trust her. She's going to have to earn his trust, that kind of thing, fighting off aliens. Doesn't want to deal with her and sends her packing. Then she comes back with a vengeance, and he very sort of, with this gritty attitude, is like, make sure you win. And that, to me, it's not so much about being a heroine, being a savior, somebody who's going around helping people and using your powers for good. Maybe there is a taint there that will be later exposed in that particular character. I have heard that this guy might be a sort of precursor to Cyborg Superman or something along those lines. I have no idea, because I haven't read any further if there's any truth to that, if that's who the character is supposed to represent. But the idea that he's going to be there sort of telling her to win, fight battles and win rather than save the day and save people. And I'm wondering if there's going to be an adversarial thing going on there, much, in the Supergirl guys, as perhaps in her Office Girl guys, with the Callista Flockhart Cat Grant character. All speculation based on this first look, and very limited knowledge of exactly how they're going to be dealing with villains and all that kind of stuff, superpowered beings, whether other DC characters are going to even show up other than what we've seen thus far. It all remains to be seen. But one shot in particular toward the end of this, I love how she's confronting this big tractor trailer truck, and it really reminded me of one of the early scenes in the Helen Slater Supergirl film when she first sort of encounters humans for the very first time, and there's this tractor trailer that stops, and two hillbilly truck drivers, I think one was Matt Frewer actually, it kind of harassing her, and she like knocks them for a loop. And I like how this is kind of paying homage to that, where she just stands in the road and she completely crashes the whole front end of the truck, sends the driver flying and everything. Not exactly sure why, but I thought that was a brilliant sequence. It blows up and explodes behind her, just making her mark on this whole thing, and then capping it off with the idea that the baby blanket that Kal-El arrived wearing on Earth and everything, he has now gifted through Jimmy Olsen to his cousin Kara as a potential cape. I like that stuff, and I like the way the costume looks with the S and everything like that. I like that she's referring to it kind of playing off of the way Man of Steel did. It's a symbol that means hope. In this case, she says it's my family coat of arms, the House of El. I love that, so more positive than negative I can say about this first look, at least for me. I thought there was a lot of great stuff going on in it, and it really ramps me up for being able to check out the series when it does debut. I hope that it kind of gets over this inter-office romance kind of storytelling thing. If that's even going to be a thing, that could have just been the vibe for the earliest moments of whatever the series is going to be, and then it all evolves away from that, which is, I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping there's more an emphasis on the action-adventure and dealing with Kara finding her place in the world and finding a clever divide between wanting to be Supergirl and wanting to be, as I said earlier, with Superman having a means of shutting that off and escaping it for a little while here and there, and how complicated that can become, kind of like the Spider-Man thing as well, where you're dealing with trying to be a hero, but you have real-life problems. Even though Kara has superpowers, even though she finds out she's bulletproof and she can fly and all these things, and she is very true to form the cousin of Kal-El, Superman. I think, the trials and tribulations of her trying to deal with all of that, it's going to be very interesting storytelling, and I hope they really focus on a lot of that, as well as the potential villains to come. And, that may enter a Freak of the Week framework, and I'm not really down for that entirely, but it also depends on how it's written and what kind of character she is going to be stood up against. So, otherwise, enough of my rambling on it. I enjoyed it for the most part. Can't wait to see what the series beholds, and I'd love to hear from you guys, as I say in the comments below, what you thought of it if you've seen it. So, yeah, otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.